We now move on to our next segment, and this is the first panel discussion of the day. The topic of our panel discussion is leveraging data and technology for next-gen BFSI. Please give me a moment to introduce to you our distinguished panel members for this panel discussion. We have with us Mr. Anand Sundaram, Head Retail Analytics, IDFC First Bank. May I invite our panelists on stage. Please give them a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Next we have with us Mr. Ashish Abraham. He's Head Credit Analytics, HDFC Bank. Welcome, Mr. Abraham. Mr. Kashinath Hariharan is Payment Industry Expert, ex-ICICI Bank. We also have Ms. Praveena Gundiah, Commercial Director, Iron Mountain. Also with us today is Mr. Gautam Bandyopadhyay, CEO and co-founder Novopay Solutions. Our next panelist is Mr. Gaurav Deshpande, Vice President, Inspira Enterprise India Limited. We also have with us Ms. Priyanka Mohapatra, Digital Trust Pillar Lead, Cybersecurity at IBM India. And to moderate the panel discussion, I'm going to invite on stage Mr. Hitesh Sethi, Director, Advanced Analytics and Research, Dun & Bradstreet, India. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for all our panelists and our moderator.
Good afternoon, everyone. So getting all the bankers together was not by design. So I think we had a very good context was set by our growth is required. Goals are set. Credit, BFSI plays a very important role. I think the transformation which is required for the BFSI segment, there are two pillars. One is data. The other is technology, which is enabling us allowing us to actually use data in a manner more effective and efficient. So that's what we'll try and explore today. We'll actually also, there are other dimensions when it comes to data. There is alternate data. There is data which is available to partners. There is the digital transformation and the distribution part of it. And that's something which we explore. And when data comes into digital form, traditional data, we could put it under lock and key. But when it's digital, what is that lock and key? I think that's a very critical aspect. And when it's digital, we are also prone to attacks. The cyber security part comes in, and that's what broadly we have outlined, what we try and explore. We'll keep it freewheeling, and at the end, if the audience has any questions, happy to take those. Yeah, so let me start maybe with Ashish. Data, technology, current use cases, which are practical, application oriented. What is it that are the top things which, say, in your bank or in your experience, we are trying to solve for?
down some regulations about what data you can use and not use, right? So that's for the small ticket loans. And for the larger ticket loans where, you do more traditional credit assessment, you use banking and, the bureau's information. The bureau information has always been available. And with account aggregator coming up, it's been in the making for a while, but now it's really getting a lot of traction. And I think all lenders are hooking all their digital journeys onto the account aggregator. So I think that's going to, really transform the way, lending is happening. And we are talking about adding mutual funds data, we're talking about adding GST data.
Right.
So it's not just going to be retail. I think even SMEs soon are going to get, benefited through this information coming in. So that's one theme. And, so coming out, as a result of that, what, right? So I think two things. One is that all this data standardization and, governance will cover segments where there is data. There are a lot of customer segments who don't have, banking data and so on and so forth. So what we call the new to credit. They don't even have a bureau history. Right. So as a banking sector, we need to think about solutions about how we're going to address their needs. Some of this could come through, what in our bank we call aggregated information models. You don't know enough about that customer, but if you know something about the cohort of the customer, right? So you aggregate data at that cohort level and you try to draw some inferences about how that segment's going to perform. That's one. And the second thing coming out of the data standardization, if all the data that's available to lenders is going to look and feel the same. The lenders, who are going to do well are the ones who are able to get more insight out of that data. So you're talking about, better models and, more techno-functional experience to understand what the data means and get that extra bit out of it. So I think that's pretty much what I see.
So I'll just pick up two things which you mentioned. I think one is new to bank. The second is new to credit. And the second is bringing sharper focus. That's an element I'm adding. So today, I think what the Adobe Sridhar was talking about. How can I help somebody who's acquiring customer to have a sharper focus? And in that context, anything Anand you would want to add? So use of alternate data, he spoke about cohorts, and how can we bring all of that together? What are you doing in your journey?
I just wanted to add a few more on the non-loan side. He spoke more of the loans, and in the last, I think with after pandemic, you would have seen absolutely disruption in digitally investment as well. The other part of the banking is investment. So almost all banks now have a complete digital journey on the savings account, deposit opening. Mutual funds have gone absolutely in a different level on investing just on a click of a button, right? SIP, mutual funds, insurance. So in all of these, there is a lot of data that's now available to segregate the NTC to figure out as to who is more affluential, who would be investing more, who would not be investing more. So all these journeys which has got built in the last 2 years is just evolving in terms of when you do a journey on savings account opening, by the time your journey is over, you can actually know is he a real super HNI client or is he a lower end client. And beyond bureau, there is absolutely lot more data today. It's available right there, legally available, which can help you by the time the journey is over. You can figure out whether the customer is really HNI and what is it that you should actually pitch, because every bank has a different segment to offer. Super HNI, they can offer a really super HNI premium proposition. So all that is now today actually available. It's all about how well you are adopting, using and giving that experience to the customer. But I think the change that has happened today is the availability of data is almost every bank would have those data points as an API. It's all about how well they have integrated, making use of that information and giving that experience superior to the client.
So we can understand the customer journey is more efficient. We understand about the customers better.
Correct.
When we triangulate multiple data points. Correct. Today from a legacy data perspective, and when we look at Iron Mountain, who's handling legacy data and being a partner in enabling that journey, not just the digital and transforming it to digital, but also automating processes. What has been your experience, in partnering with the banks?
And this is very much in line with what Anand spoke about. So can you all hear me?
Yeah, I think.
Can you hear now?
Yes.
So Anand was just speaking about the huge amount of data. You also know when the person is just coming to open an account, you know whether he's a HNI account, whether he is not an HNI account. But along with all that, you have also this huge amount of data that is the legacy data that's sitting in record centers. You have people, Anand just, Mr. Singh, Dr. Singh just spoke about the amount of data that's there in bank. I think you mentioned 533,000 crore gigabyte of data that's stored with all the bank. Now, how do you start making sense of all that? There is this huge paper, people who are applying digitally, there's huge influx of digital. How do you make sense of all that? So there needs to be something where you combine the digital and the physical and start analyzing the data. There is also the compliance aspect that comes in. RBI has so many guidelines. There's this CKYC, whether the Aadhaar card masking has been done, not done, whether there's a signature that's supposed to be there in page 3, page 5, page 7, is it there, not there? All those aspects, how do I really handle all that? And that's where the tools that we have come in. So we have AI ML tools that run through all this data and gives you those kind of analytics. It will tell you whether Praveena, who's just applied for a loan just now, is she already a customer that's taken loan previously? Was there some gold loan? Was there a home loan? And and what was the how was the credit history for this customer? So those kind of analytics we can offer you those kind of analytics, and that's really helping in the customer that we were talking about. I also heard the Adobe gentleman talking about the customer experience. How quick is the loan getting generated? And we all know, as a lot of bankers over here, the person who is able to offer the loan fastest, he is able to win the business. So how soon can I get the information populated? How soon can I get all this data across to my underwriters in the back-end team, and they are able to verify and say, okay, to grant the loan to the customer? That's something that we could help with.
So largely, just taking from there, legacy data, digitization is happening, the government has invested, made a infrastructure available, which makes access to information very simple. We are using technology to transform our processes. But still the customer is not happy, right? There's still challenges, Kashi, what are these challenges? How do we address them? Because we are still not growing at the pace we should be growing at.
Yeah. Thanks, Hitesh, for this question. And let me add my 2 bits, and I would like to build upon what Dr. Arun Singh talked about very eloquently and very crisply about the explosion of data that's happening. And we also heard my co-panelists talk about. So today we are in a situation. I would like to quote Samuel Coleridge, who once said, "Water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink." Now, today we are in a situation of data everywhere, and not a data to use. Okay, so literally, if I may figuratively say this, from a data utopia, we have data diarrhea. Okay, if I have to kind of phraseate it. So the problem today is not about data discovery. So there is a lot of data. I think Anand also acceded to that. There's a huge amount of data that is made available. So the whole problem is, how do you find the needle from the haystack? Now that's the data problem, and that's also the technology problem. So the theme of this discussion is about data and technology. This is where the data and technology comes together. So one part is on how do you build those models to kind of find the needle from the haystack. I mean, that's a real problem. And how do you know that that's the needle that you found, and that's the needle you wanted in the first place, whether it will sew your clothes? Is that the needle you want? You find something and you believe you found the needle. How do you know that you found it? Now that's a big challenge area. And that's a very iterative process. People kind of, banks, large banks, small banks, NBFCs, and a lot of other players have iteratively done this to discover, have I found the needle, and the results, are they coming or not? So that's the part one. The part two is really the how part, which is the tech. I can tell you for sure that in large organizations, why in large? Even in small organization, I mean, let me give you a very simple parallel of, maybe each of us live in a house, 4 or 5 members, there are multiple rooms, you have a kitchen. How many times, how much data that you have in your own house, and is it all organized in one place? You often forget, where's my that blue shirt, or my key, or what is my one medical checkup that I did, I forgot where it is kept. So in one organization itself, there are so many data silos that you can't organize it. Whether it's an MSME or a large corporate or a very, very large corporate, the problem is billion times larger. So the big tech problem is, how do you pipe the data, create those constructs which will extract those data from those silos and stream it into meaningful, call it data lakes, ocean, I don't care what you call it, but how do you kind of put all this data together? And that's the first technology task. I have found that this is a big task, because in my erstwhile organization, I was driving this initiative of, in the corporate side of business, how can we use analytics? So we've kind of moved some notches in that direction, but it has been a massive exercise to figure out how do you kind of do it. Well, because the problem is that each of these systems would have come for their own purpose in their own time, and they had their own database structures. So as many systems, that many database structures, and how do you kind of concatenate the data using common fields? The nomenclatures are different. I'm just delving this in a detail because everybody says data is the new oil. I understand, but what is the tool to plumb it out?
Yeah, absolutely.
What is the drill you need to use? Yeah. How should it go? I mean, I'm talking about that part, the how part, because I'm talking through experience of doing something, of making sense of the data. So that's a hard problem to solve. It involves infrastructure. It involves, what Sridhar talked about, cloud infrastructure or any other kind of infrastructure. It involves ETL scripts writing. It involves culture change, which again Sridhar talked about. Is the organization willing to facilitate the concatenation of data?
Yeah.
Because organizations are in silos, systems are also in silos. Like systems are a reflection of how people think, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the challenges that are there to really fulfill the dream of what Dr. Arun was talking about in terms of extracting those 533 billions of data.
Yeah, very important. I think largely, so many silos internally. How do we cut across? Even if we cut across, the problem I always feel is that what is available externally. So the government is solving a large part of that problem, saying that infrastructure is ours to build, and let me just make it available consistently to all.
Yeah, actually that's compounds the problem, because internally you have so much problem, and then you have to marry that with the external stuff. It's almost like a marriage you have to make.
Yeah, so the external data, I see, a lot of fintechs, coming in there, where they say, okay, what is available, how do we process it, how do we bring it together, and from there, if you're solving the internal problem of your internal data, that's where I think, Gautam, in your experience, how that has been, please, if you could bring that in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I think Kashi talked about finding the needle in the haystack, right? And how the data silos are being created. Dr. Arun Singh talked about the the digital good public infrastructure that we have created. So on one hand, we have like a extremely good digital infrastructure in place. On the other hand, we have this too much of data, and we don't know what to do about it. Okay, so all of us are customers of multiple banks or other institutions per se, and I'm sure all of you would be really frustrated to know that whenever you call the IVR system of any bank or any the thing, first thing you'll hear that our options have changed. And then you say, press one, you have to hear a long, running list of the options, and then you go to that. But what really if that, or it'll be very difficult to find how to get in touch. If it is like, somebody who doesn't want to invest any, manpower or people, it'll be very difficult to find the option to actually reach the customer support altogether. So, when it comes to all this, I think, what it really would be that if the systems and the technologies were enabling us to exactly know what the customer is calling for. Can I be proactive in that support? Okay, and how do I be proactive? There are multiple ways. This is what we have also done as a fintech. When we deal with a lot of banks, and we have, let's say our customers engaging, we know exactly what transaction history that the customer has. We know what they have called last time for. If there is an open interaction that is already there, and what if that option that was coming up that you have been looking for, let's say transaction status, and and here is the status of the transaction. If I could do that, okay, then I think it will something that will improve the customer service significantly. Okay, sure. So that is one thing that one of the approaches that Novopay, and now we are Trust. Okay, there's a booth outside. What we have done is that we have followed a dashboarding approach. So we have believed in shining the light in every corner. So if you come to our office, you will see that the walls are filled with large screens, and there are multiple dashboards that are running there. This could be business related, they are technology, related, they are performance related, they are service related, and they just keep, rotating for showing different kind of a data to, and insights really, not the data, but the insights that comes in. So if I know that there is a service which is already not working to its fullest, okay, if there is a problem to, let's say, an NPCI or an eKYC availability that is there, okay, I would do in technical terms, there's a circuit breaker that happens, but I couldn't be proactive to tell the customers that, hey, expect some slowness. Sometimes it is just setting that expectation which can work wonders. Okay, so I think having said this, the predictive analytics and having said whatever the problems that we are, I must agree that as banks and as fintechs, because of the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure that we have been able to create, we are at a much better level of finding the the data or the needle from the haystack per se. Okay, there's a long way to go, of course. Okay, right. But I think the future is definitely bright, and the right direction is what I believe that we are all moving towards.
Sure. No, so I think we're trying to simplify things, but still very complex. Multiple data assets, multiple technology platforms, external platforms talking both as an input and then from a customer interface perspective, right? And I think security becomes a large challenge. So I now want to touch that security part, the cyber risk part, and then I'll circle back to more functional and operational problems on the product side. But how about let's hear from you, Gaurav, and then sure. Maybe with Priyanka, your experience on security of data, how you are solving that problem, and the emerging risks which you see from a cyber perspective.
Sure. Thanks for that, Hitesh. So we heard about data diarrhea. I like the term a lot. So data diarrhea, we are talking about availability of data. There is abundant amount of data that is available. Okay, and then we are also saying that a lot of this data might not be of use to us. Okay, it might not be of use to us because we are thinking of what good can be done with the data. But then it is a lot of data for people who want to do bad with that data. Okay, so availability is being taken care of. Okay, however, if you look at going to the basics of security, you need to look at confidentiality of data, you need to look at the integrity of data. Okay, and also what is coming up really strongly in the Indian market now, it has been there in the global markets for some time, is how do you look at data privacy? Okay, so who is the custodian of the data? Who is controlling the data? Who is the customer of the data that you're processing? Who is processing the data? Who's going to store it? Okay, what is happening to the data while it is in motion and things like that? I think these things become really important. Okay, And while we are introducing newer technologies, newer business models to process the data better, it is also introducing a lot of newer vulnerabilities. And you need to look at these vulnerabilities, you need to control these vulnerabilities. And while we are thinking of what to do with the data, how do we process it the right way, if we bake in security right now, that is going to help. Because if we look at security as an afterthought, the damage is already done. Okay? And there are many examples of how data is misused, okay, and it is causing security risks. Okay. Nothing to do with the fintech industry, but an example that probably a lot of us as individuals can understand and relate to is, look at the cyber crime, okay, that is getting reported with the cyber police. The most amount of misuse and the most amount of crime happening over there is with matrimonial data. Okay. People are getting duped because of that. And that is data lying over there. And who has put up that data over there? We have put up that data ourselves. Okay. So there is no one who's forcing us to put that data up over there. Okay. But after a certain point of time, that data is of no use to us. It is too much data. I mean, we don't even really know. Okay. You mentioned that example of, I don't know where my blue shirt is in the house or where I've kept my keys. Similarly, where have I put my data? What all have I put in the open space? And who's going to access that? Okay. If tomorrow someone has real bad intentions, he has got the right amount of focus and also the right kind of resources to go after me as an individual, he can impersonate me because I myself have put up a lot of my stuff on the open internet. Okay, so I think that is something that we need to look at, and when it goes from individuals to institutions, it becomes all the more important, because coming after me as an individual, someone would not have the right kind of resources. But coming after me as an institution, okay, there is a lot more money involved in that, okay, and I can organize things and come after you as an institution. Yeah. So I think that is what we try to look at, that is what we try to consult and advise our customers on, and that is where we work with technology providers like IBM and some of the other folks.
So when
also.
you're solving business problems, might as well build it in the design stage.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the key message,
exactly.
I think, because if you don't do it, then you're only reacting to the threats you're
Absolutely.
Receiving.
Absolutely.
And that will not be a comprehensive view.
Absolutely.
What about you, Priyanka?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. So I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what Gaurav just said and what Mr. Kashinath he mentioned, this is something we as a company, since we are working in cybersecurity space, we have been seeing that day in and day out. So if if you ask me what is exactly the challenges that we are facing, everybody is saying that yes, there are too many data. Why there is too many data? Because we are going for a hybrid cloud adoption. Okay. Now, if you look at banks, okay, they're not only interested in on-premises, but they're putting their data on every possible cloud, not one cloud. Maybe Amazon, Google, even IBM, AWS. So everywhere there is data. Now, what the challenges that they're facing is visibility of data. As Mr. Kashinath rightly mentioned, where are my crown jewels? Where is my data lying? How am I going to know about it? And just, succeeding this challenge, this comes another challenge. If I don't know where my data is, how am I going to protect my data? And let's say a bank just did everything possible. Okay, that they went for, they did a validation, everything, they went for right solutions, everything, and still, some of the data is breached or stolen. How can we ensure that those data are not being read, not being, used by the hackers? So, this is where companies like us, we came into the picture. If you want the visibility of data, so we always encourage our customer, to go for discovery and classification. This will help you understand where and which file, wherever you kept it. Is it in the Amazon? Is it on Microsoft Cloud? Is it on premises? Is it on your personal laptop? Every single detail you can get from that. Then secondly, if I look at the second challenge, how I can protect my data. You have to monitor the data. So let's say if somebody is trying to hack my data, might be my financial data, my personal data, my demographical data. If somebody is trying to hack my data, I as a person, I should be as a CISO of a bank, I should be getting an email on that. Or my SOC team should be getting an email on that. That is one trend that is happening. And it is, catching up very fast in India. And the third which I mentioned, that if our data is breached, how am I going to ensure that the hackers don't, claim ransomware using that? So the only way that we can go about is making the data encrypted. So if my data is encrypted, so what will the hacker read? They will only see the binary ones, 0101001. What will they get out of it? Nothing. So if you think on those lines, okay, it's basically, if I want to say something extra on this, it is the mindset. You just think that, if you think that, yes, today I have deployed firewalls, next-gen firewalls, I have deployed IDs, I have deployed everything, what can possibly happen? No, that is not the solution. Zero trust is the thing. Zero trust is the mantra which every BFSI should adopt. You have to validate each and every person, you have to validate each and every situation before going ahead. You just cannot, as a CISO, as an organization, as a banking industry, when so much of your data, your customers, because your customer trusts you with their data. They have given you their Aadhaar details. They are given you with their, their wife's horoscope also. They might also give you if you ask for it, for the loan. They will give you. So when they have trusted you so much, you have to respect that trust. So every single day, you have to be on your toes to protect that data. You have to rethink. And there are, companies, there are organizations who work day in and day out to, just be on one step ahead of the hackers. So that's my point.
Yeah, no, I think, so if you see data security, data privacy, IT security, these are key issues, and from a product perspective, we need to build that in. The other challenge is that, which the government is trying to solve, is that the consent to be made available to the customer. You decide what to share, to what extent to share, at what frequency, and I think that becomes very important, and so one is the customer access part, where we are actually extending our systems outside and acquiring customers. The second is this whole process about technology and data coming together for new product, or current customers, what more can I sell? So which is the new product, the process transformation piece. And the third is harvesting internal data, and if we could just focus on these three aspects, right, saying that, and on the consumer side, we've seen a lot of innovation which has happened, Arun spoke about a single day loan, daily transactions, not so much on the B2B side, we've been struggling to address the micro part, where majority of the industries are, and like, IDFC, the chairman was saying that coconut vendor, who's doing those transactions, how can we enable them to be better, enable credit flow to them, and how we are solving those new to credit customers, and I think that's one key problem. I think if we could speak about deliberate. The second piece is, I always feel that a lot of technology and process transformation which we do, many of it is without relevance and context. It's we don't know whether the overall reduction which will happen in internal processes will translate into any benefit to the customer, right? And it's an open point I'm putting across. If we can deliberate that, and please, this is an aspect which is open to the crowd also, so new product, new to credit, how do we solve that problem? Technology, business transformation, the other words which are, and you'll hear them often is, I don't understand AI, machine learning, without context, because end of the day, when we were studying statistics, we knew they were tools to solve business problems. You cannot solve business problems by just having the tools, minus the context, minus the business experience. So I think that piece, and in that context, harvesting internal data, if there are thoughts, ideas, just open to everyone in the floor also. If anybody has any valid suggestions, things you are doing, maybe questions to ask, please feel free.
So I want to say something over here. Data in the form of digital is good, but there are so many problems that we have on the ground level. So for example, if it's a branch with 5,000, 10,000 branches all over 25,000 branches, and there was a customer who came to us and said that, you know, one of the KRAs that they have is that the customer experience is good, and we have somebody over here spoke about customer experience, and one element of that customer experience is that the crowding should not be there. So at a particular time, the crowding should not happen in front of the bank, and it's also for security reasons. But the thing is that how do I monitor 5,000 branches from Guwahati to Cochin to all these other places? How do I monitor that? And how do I do it? Okay, so that's a problem that we know exists, but you know, so the way we approach it is that, yeah, look at all the video footage that is there. Let's start looking at, when you say crowding, does it mean 4 people, 5 people, 6 people? And then at what times do crowding happen? You know, so there are tools to address these kind of problems that are there. Is there anything that you could talk about, Anand and Kashi?
So, you know, I'd like to you know, talk about this internal transformation benefits and, you know, stuff like that. See, one of the key things here is that you see, I think Einstein said something like this, that all that is valuable is not necessarily measurable, and all that is measurable is not necessarily valuable. So, you know, oftentimes many of us get into the rut of you know, saying that can I tangibly measure internal transformation? I would tend to think many of the internal transformations are enabling in nature, and they do not directly lead to a business outcome. I mean, the case in point is for example the whole you know, consent layer, etc. Consent layer in itself is not leading to you know the growth of the NBFCs and you know, credit inclusion. The presence of concomitant and supplementary factors around that is what is leading it.
Sure.
Earlier also these were there.
Sure.
So what this intermediary called the consent layer is doing is to you know, excite the whole process and be a catalyst. It's still a catalyst.
Sure.
In itself it doesn't make the money. It's in itself, it's not of consequence.
Sorry, just that part, you know, just to qualify, that is why the government is getting into it, right?
Absolutely.
That's the infrastructure.
Absolutely.
That's the job of the government to
exactly.
do, you know.
Exactly.
And then the business part is what the banks would do, the other enabling.
The point is that several such initiatives that are data in nature, building tech for data in nature, or of this nature, within organizations. What the government is doing for the rails, similarly in large organizations, small organizations, this kind of initiative will not directly put a result. But if you employ 20 people, open 20 branches and push 20 sales people, you will see a revenue impact immediately. This doesn't see a revenue impact immediately. It will show over a period of time, and you may not be able to directly measure it. So that's the big conundrum in corporates to solve.
Right.
I have a slightly different perspective. Of course, since I come from a security background, my perspective would be that. See, why is it that we are needing these rapid transformations? That is because we want to stay ahead of competition. That is probably because our end customers are wanting a lot of rapid things. Someone spoke about processing a loan in a day's time. Okay, and then there are consents that we are talking about. You also mentioned about consent. So what happens is, if I'm in that zone wherein I would want that processing to be done in a day's time, I am blindly giving consent to every single thing. I am not looking at what I'm giving consent to. And if I do not give my consent, say for example, as an end customer, okay, I decide that I do not give consent to this, the processing would not happen. Okay. So there has to be a mechanism that says that, okay, if you do not give your consent, we might not be able to do 100% of it, we might just be able to do 50% of what we are saying. So you might not get your loan in one day, you will take about a week's time to get your loan. Okay. The thing is, there has to be some responsibility put on to the end customer also, that you are trying to rapidly give consent and you are wanting a lot of faster processing, but while doing that, you are probably overlooking the security aspect. So, okay, we will process your requirement in a day's time, but at the risk of your bank account getting wiped out tomorrow. Would you still be okay with that? So I think some hard steps need to be taken so that people are made to take the responsibility. Today, people are not taking that responsibility, unfortunately.
So there are three different things, I think. Sorry, just to differentiate. The customer wants to just be aware that, yaar, mere ko milega, kab milega. That's what I think Gautam was saying. That can I have content going to them saying, yeah, systems are slow, it may take 2 more hours, 5 more hours, 7 more hours. The problem is that my internal processes don't give me that visibility, and that's what I'm trying to transform. The second is that across the BFSI segment, there are some common protocols, which is the infrastructure. That is the government to pave. So the SEBI chairman stood and she said that any fintech which is working on digital infrastructure, which is the foray of the government, may, if not today, may tomorrow go out of business, right? Because we will say that, okay, this is open for all, and that's where the Public Credit Bureau comes in, the account aggregator framework comes in. So one is that infrastructure part, the other is that relevant transformations, and third is that how am I using that data to design products which are beneficial to the end customer. So these are three separate aspects. Ashish, go ahead, please. Sorry.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to check if there are any questions.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, anybody,
Okay, so then I'll just, there's nothing right now. So, it's very important for organizations as you're going through these digital transformations to keep an eye on the end customer, right? You can do all your transformations internally. You can, take all the data, that you need, build fancy ML models and whatnot. But you have to, see at the end of the day, what has that led to, in terms of changing the customer's life when he wants to, get a product. And so I'll just talk about a simple framework that, in the bank and in my team that, we try and do. We've spoken about, there's plenty of data going around. There's plenty of data that you can, keep playing around with. But we then ask ourselves, there are 3 types of decisions that you have to, do. So that you can do with analytics. So you can do decision support, you can do decision augmentation, and you can do decision automation. Obviously, as you go from support to augmentation to automation, you're improving the processes, the customers are seeing the benefit, and obviously at automation stage, the customer can get that product instantly. So we have to keep figuring out, we're doing this analysis, and we may have started with trying to support the decision by putting out some reports. Then you augment the decision by adding a little bit more onto the report so that a person is still taking the decision, but he is now armed with more contextual data to take that decision. And in the automation stage, the machine is taking the decision, right? So are we, in all this digital and data transformation that we are doing, are you actually moving up the ladder is something that we ask ourselves, and because we know then the customers are going to benefit. So that's one, just a framework for, organizations to use.
Yeah, I'll add a few more. So, see the customer part, I just want to say the customer's behavior and the adoption of technology and the expectation has really, customer actually doesn't see a BFSI usage versus any other usage very differently, right? A customer today is so much personalized offering by any e-commerce player or a social media player is so much personalized that when he comes to a banking, he is not differentiating, it is a bank, so it will not be personalized and all that. He is expecting same level of personalization here as well. So then, and the entire data behavior from even on the back end, like, 10 years back, anybody doing 5 transactions in a bank would be saying very engaged customer. Today, 5 transactions, customer, any human being here, we sit and we do a GPay like 5 times a day easily. Yeah. So everything has undergone so much change. Right. Earlier, transaction mining in banks used to be very common. They transact mine, they find out what is actually happened. Today, when you see UPI, a customer today actually doesn't put any remark. He just stands in any shop anywhere, just does a payment. Right. There's nothing in that. When you mine the transaction, you get nothing there. So the whole algorithm behind has undergone change, and every day you thought you've mastered it, again something changes. Right. So I think that's, but the other benefit side, which I think somebody touched upon, is even the branch, any branch anywhere, the person in the branch, a frontline, anywhere in the India, he's also started adopting data more. So anything that you send, which is quite meaningful, he's able to now apprehend that it's useful to him and start using it.
Right.
The other very important change, one more we have noticed, is the silos of data, which, for example, earlier you used only bureau and you like to take addition. Today, if you have a bureau and it's showing maybe very small one, thin one card or something, but you have so many alternate options to verify and validate that something else is showing absolutely a different picture. Right. Looking at one card of 15,000 limit, you thought he's a normal customer, but suddenly you see a EPFO data or a GST data showing some absolutely crores of transactions for the same customer. So the whole lens is changed because you have so many alternate options of data. And when you used to look only one side of it, one data, you used to take a particular decision. Today, it's all about how well you are able to, and technology is actually available. I mean, giving somebody sitting in, as he gave an example, like sitting somebody in Cochin or sitting somebody in Chandigarh, that guy can be given in a second, information about the customer who is sitting up in front of him. So I think technology enablers are there. It's about banks to, kind of how well you are able to consume and give that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one part which we didn't touch was the next gen part, if I may bring that in. Anything which...
So I'll add to what,
please,
so what Anand and Ashish was talking about in terms of, he also talked about the nature of the data is changing. What we thought is important yesterday is the new things are coming up. Okay, I just want to bring focus to the fact that today the BFSI segment is looking for growth towards the Bharat, and the nature of the data out there can be very different from what we are so used to. Ashish talked about NTC, okay, which is they're new to credit. One of the things that I think in terms of the technology, trend or what we should be doing more is in terms of harvesting voice as a source of data. Okay, are we really doing that? I would like, for example, when an agent who's distributing the, let's say HDFC Bank products, okay, through the digital distribution platform that, that they use, the person on the ground is actually speaking, for all in Hindi, okay, or in Tamil, okay, so this is like ML talking to ML. Okay, Karthik calling Karthik, right? So that movie you would have seen. So the first ML is the multilingual, and the second ML is the machine learning.
Right.
Okay, so that's where the ML to ML, conversion needs to happen. Which is where I think there's a lot of opportunity which is there. Where if ML starts calling ML, then we can harvest the new type of data that we are getting it.
Sure. No,
so that is one trend. Yes. The other one, okay, because a lot of my esteemed panel members spoke about the privacy part of it, okay, in terms of the data privacy, okay, and it is a very serious concern that we have. We all know that, right? Okay, so the whole trend about the W3C, which is all about the verifiable identity, which is coming up. Okay, that's something that is, the direction to which we should all be moving. So when let's say if I want to take a loan, okay, which is digital lending, and I talk to Eva, the HDFC Bank, chatbot, okay, I want to do this whole transaction in a way that I only speak, I don't pick up my phone, I don't pick up any interface, okay, I just talk to Eva, and Eva, at the back of it, there's a faceless assessment of my, credit underwriting happening, okay, there is no credit officer that is actually coming in the way at all, okay, in terms of this whole thing, coming in. And again, while I give the permission, I'm telling that the permission is only for this particular transaction that I'm going to do. And if I take the loan, then you have the data. If I don't take the loan, then you don't have the permission to use the data. Use the data, or you have the permission until I close the browser. You must have seen it that in some of the new browsers that have come up. They all talk about that, that you have my permission like that. So I think this is all, we have all the right building blocks. We are very fortunate to be living in an era where the government has done so much of digital enablement across the board, okay, and we just need to harvest them in the most innovative way, and the banks and the technology companies and the fintechs, I think this partnership is going to lead to that transformation that we are all looking forward to.
So very quickly, our time is up. any new things from a technology perspective, the next gen solutions which, so-called chat GPT for BFSI, which you are excited about? Anything which you can add to what Gautam already said?
Yeah, I'll just add one or two things which we would have never thought. Innovation is happening so fast that there are things which you would have not thought, and it's happening. I mean, one thing recently, as again is a made in India Rupay. Rupay launched along with us. Our bank, we've recently launched something which is called a sticker card. I mean, who would even imagine? And it's just a sticker. You just have to stick it on your phone or anywhere you stick it, and you can tap and go. I mean, 5 years back, even when Visa launched Tap and Go, people thought is it possible also? And today, Rupay recently have launched something called a sticker, which you can stick anywhere and just tap and go. I mean, it's latest innovation. Whether it will go well or not, it's time will say. But it's Rupay which is doing something like this. And the other thing I also want to say is, something like a bot. Everybody has experienced, but now there are humanoid calling. Is happening so fast. For everything there is a humanoid calling. Suddenly every bank literally has now copied, everybody has a humanoid calling and so on. So I think next 2 months what will happen today you cannot predict, because that fast the innovation is happening. Something is coming, if it's not working, it's going out, and again something else is coming up. That's the pace in which we are going, which is really good to see.
Well, I am excited about every new technology that is coming up. It keeps me employed.
No, I agree. I think, yeah, please.
So, we are all talking about the next gen and technology, but you call me the devil's advocate, or do call me whatever you want. But yes, we also have this next gen solutions, when it comes to securing your data. Okay, as Praveena said that they are using AI, ML to, collect the data and work on analytics. The same way, even in the security space also. So we are there, what we do is, it's more of it's not a reactive situation out here. It's more of a predictive thing. So this AI ML, this kicks in, okay? So what we do is we map whatever the risk our data is facing to whatever the industry threat vectors are.
Right.
So we are mapping it and we are giving the visibility to the customer.
Sure.
So the customer can easily see, or even most of the banks, they can easily see, yes, this is the place where currently there is some hacking happening. And that is how technology is helping us. We should be actually grateful. Actually, I agree with him. We should be grateful that we are in this era where technology is also, is the next gen, where we are talking about data, which is understanding the customer. Okay, we are also having solutions, where the customer can secure themselves. So everything we have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Who can understand better? DNV started because we needed correspondents to go to different regions to bring secure information which the lenders could act upon, So, and it's a very different world today. So just summarizing, I think we've just barely touched the surface. A lot of open issues. I think the idea was to highlight them. A lot of things to do in the micro segment. How do we address it? How do we access them? Data currently we have, alternate data we can use, and I think we touched upon that. At the same time, when we are doing that, there is no existing data. So how can we take credit decisions? That's another area and aspect. If BFSI has to grow, then these are problems we need to solve. The other aspect was on this whole digital transformation, internal processes, relevance, what is infrastructure, and therefore the government would be enabling what is it that we need to do, how can we work collaboratively. Take the telecom example, right? Eventually the infrastructure, everybody collaborated and it's available for us to use. And the third part is, which as Indians we don't often think of, is security. My data, my privacy, my business, what purpose am I sharing it for? Is it for eternity? For what time, and when can you tell me that you have a destruction policy or purging policy which will destroy this data? Very important, right? And we never ask those questions. And and is your process stable enough that you will enable this? So I am giving you a GST number. He says, no, don't worry, sir. I'm a fintech. I'll pull everything which is required. But then where will you store it? How will it get reused? All of these are important questions, and I think the idea was to just highlight them, put them on the table. These are aspects we need to solve for as an industry if we need to scale up to the expectation what Arun was saying. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hitesh Sethi, and our eminent panelists. May I request you to please stay on stage. We'd like to present you with a nice memento, followed by a group photograph. Discussion on leveraging data and technology reminded me of something that happened very recently in New York. And there was this article about a tourist who walked into a pet shop and was looking at the animals on display. And while he was there, another customer walked in and said to the shopkeeper, "I'll have a sea monkey, please." And the shopkeeper nodded, went over to a cage at the side of the shop. He took out a monkey, fitted it with a collar and a leash, handed it over to the customer, and he said, "That'll be $5,000. So the customer paid and walked out with the monkey. Startled, the tourist went over to the shopkeeper and asked, "That was a very expensive monkey. Most of them are usually only a few hundred. Why did it cost so much?" And the shopkeeper said, "Well, that monkey can program in C. Very fast, tight code, no bugs, worth all the money." So the tourist looked at the monkey in another cage, and that one was more expensive, $10,000. And he asked the shopkeeper, "What does this one do?" He says, "Oh, this one, that one programs in C++. It's a C++ monkey. It can manage object-oriented programming, Visual C++, and even some Java, all the usual really good stuff." And then he looked around and he saw a third monkey in another cage of its own. And the price tag around this monkey was $50,000. So the tourist gasped to the shopkeeper and he says, "That one costs more than all of the others put together. What on earth does it do?" The shopkeeper replied, "Well, I haven't really seen it do anything, but it calls itself the project manager." Those of you who've got project managers in the office around you, be careful.